On this week in sales, we're going to be taking a look at the crypto billionaire that I had inadvertently on the Salesman podcast, new LinkedIn Sales Navigator updates, the labor shortage, and much, much more. My name is Will. I'm the founder over at salesman.org, and joining me, the gin to my tonic, sales royalty, Victor Antonio. Victor, how's it going, my friend?
Will, what has happened? It's been a while, Will. How you doing, man?
I am good. I am very good. I'm excited to chat with you. We just talked about some business stuff pre-recording, which is why it's been a while, because I've just had my head in the ground. Head in the sand? That's the opposite of what I've done. I've been doing the opposite of an ostrich. I've been running around like a headless chicken, for another bird metaphor there. And yeah, rocking and rolling. How about you, sir?
Let me see. We've been working on the book, launching the book, really pushing the book. We've done exceptionally well. So I don't know what the total sales are, but I think we sold at least in the first month. I don't know. I'm gonna put it between 500 and 700 books, which
Wow.
I don't know about it. That's pretty good for me. So I'm really happy being a self-publisher, selling those books, mastering the upsell. But other than that, just working on new ideas, creating new content, and we'll talk about that offline later on, Will.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so we jump straight into it, sir.
Let's do it.
Cool. Let's jump into some sales news. I will pull up this story. We'll switch around. Are you familiar with Heather Morgan?
I have no idea who this person is.
Have you seen this on LinkedIn and stuff over the past few days? Are people talking about it?
I have not.
Okay.
This is, your notes actually was the first time I seen it.
So Heather Morgan, I interviewed Heather on the Salesman podcast like 3-4 years ago now. Very nice girl. Got on with her. We had a chat after the show about a few things. She run a business called Sales Folk. I think it's still there. I will just double check as I go through this. Sales Folk, and it was, here we go. Pull it up. She was helping salespeople write better sales emails, better outreach emails, writing sales copy, that side of things. Seemed like the business was going along fine. And then she just disappeared. So I was like, okay, fine. People start businesses, stop businesses, not the end of the world kind of stuff. Then she started throwing out all these. I'm going to be polite because I want to encourage people to create content, right?
This is just going to go bad real quick.
I want to encourage. Well, this isn't even the bad bit, mate. This is nothing. I want to encourage people to create music. If you create music and it sucks, you've still created something. Well, she started throwing out all these slightly odd rap videos. Right, which we won't show on here in case we get pulled down from. Although I guess they're obviously not owned by Warner Brothers or EMI or someone, so maybe we won't get pulled down for playing one of the videos. But these weird rap videos. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. People, maybe she's made a bunch of money somewhere and she's gone off and she's messing around with these music videos. Then that post comes out, and allegedly, I'll quote from the post here. Allegedly.
Yeah.
Earlier today, the Justice Department announced the arrest of Lila Litchinson and Heather Morgan, who allegedly attempted to launder more than 25,000 bitcoins that were part of a 2016 hack of Hong Kong-based cryptocurrency exchange, Binnyflex. So, are you familiar with Bitcoin and the value of these things, Victor?
I try to understand Bitcoin. To this day, even after watching documentaries on Bitcoin, I don't understand crap about Bitcoins.
Okay,
I get the idea of, electronic ledgers and, verification. I get all that, but it's like, I still don't get it.
So this amount of Bitcoin, Victor, that allegedly Heather and her partner are trying to launder is worth $3.6 billion.
I believe it. I know that's 25,000 is a lot of Bitcoins. I don't know much, but I do know that's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a mind blower.
How'd you go from start?
Well, how the hell do you go from emails to help salespeople to rap videos to basically Department of Justice coming after you for Bitcoin theft? How did that?
Dude,
how does that happen in the world of selling?
Absolutely insane. And so the reason I wanted to put it is it's just a hilarious story. The way that you think that you, after meeting someone or interviewing someone, you think you got a bit of bond, rapport, and you think that you might know the individual. But clearly
did you have any idea when you were interviewing her? Like, did she just kind of you think back about the interview? Was there any hint of I want to be in a rap music video, which I'm dying to see now? But after this, I'm going to go check out the videos. But any hint now that you reflect on that call?
No, dude, absolutely insane. A bunch. So I won't name people. There'll be people watching this now, streaming on LinkedIn and YouTube, who have emailed me about it. I won't call people out, But there was a lot of mainstream media news coverage of this because it's like, I think it's the biggest cryptocurrency hack scandal in the short history of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And so I know one fella had mainstream media reaching out to him because she'd been on his podcast and they'd done webinars and stuff together to ask for quotes and that. And then he was feeling, well, maybe we should comment to mainstream media because we might get some attention and links in blog in articles and stuff. And then he's the CEO of the company. He's like, no, we stay away from all this. It's just such like an upside down scenario that I wasn't even sure whether I should post about it on LinkedIn, which I did yesterday, and whether we should cover it on this topic. But people who listen to the Salesman podcast for long-term listeners may have heard the episode. And yeah, I just thought it was interesting how you can go from one thing and seemingly having good success in a small business, right, to quite another. It's insane.
That's multi-talented, right? I mean, think about it. Sales, emails, well,
she did get caught.
Rap star. Rap career to stealing Bitcoin. And you know what's even scary about this, if you think about it? Her and this, Lila Lichtenstein. I mean, are these like techno geniuses? I mean, are these like programmers, hackers? How did they get access to 25,000 Bitcoins? And how did they hack Hong Kong? I mean, how do you hack them? I don't understand. I think you got to be very good to hack them. So I'm like, how? So I got to assume that if Heather doesn't know programming, Liechtenstein is the mastermind behind all this.
I don't think they did the hacking. I think they are being, and to be fair, they are accused of this. It's not gone to court yet. They are accused of doing the money laundering. So to take that Bitcoin, spread it around. I guess you go through different exchanges. You drop it off on one account, throw it into another until it becomes so scrambled that then you can pull it out and put it in your own bank account and start spending it. So are they geniuses? Well, they got caught. So maybe,
they got caught.
Maybe
That's smart. But, by the way, I guess that's where the rap money went to. You know, you put all this money into, that's what drug dealers do, don't they? Remember, they put all this money into like rap videos and stuff. You can launder all kinds of money. So, interesting. And she was on your podcast.
Yep.
This is how close you were to criminals.
insane.
You're almost a criminal affiliated podcast now. Would that be safe to say?
I've had a fella from the Chicago Mafia on the show. Or an ex-member of the Chicago Mafia. That was a good episode. I find the world of I've not got the how to describe. I'm too risk averse to be involved in anything like that. Right? I'd rather just earn less, work harder, and then not have the tiniest risk of, especially in the US, the federal government booting down my door and grabbing me and throwing me on the face and cuffing me, right? I've not got the cojones for that, Victor.
I don't have the cojones either. By the way, my life of crime was cut short early on. Quick description. Me and my friend Angel went to a store. He decided he wanted to steal a basketball hoop, like the net. Mm-hmm. So, because we had rims that didn't have nets, right? So he shoved it down his pants, right? And as we were walking out the door, man, the security guard just stopped us both and took us in the back room, made us strip down, and I didn't have anything. Angel had the thing. He let me go. And I remember I walk all the way back home. It was like, it was a long walk back home. And I remember I had to go tell his mother, your son's got caught stealing something. And I'm like, okay, that was it. That was the closest I got to a life of crime. I said, I don't want any part of that. So totally risk averse on this side.
As you say that, I'm trying to think, have I ever stolen anything? Now, there may have been a point in time where films and stuff that were acquired not via buying a DVD were found on equipment that may or may not have been mine.
But
other than that, I've never stolen, and that is still stealing. It's piracy, right? But I've never stolen anything.
I think I have. I just can't remember instances of it. I do remember. This is how old I am, because you're going to comment on it anyway. Might as well bring it up and block your objection on the age thing. I remember when you used to take in bottles for a nickel. You collect bottles for a nickel, and you take. So you don't even remember that shit.
No.
Sorry. So I would collect. You go around collecting bottles. Because people just threw stuff away. And I remember we would take it over to the store. Lady's, it was called Carol. That was the lady's name. And so we would take over bottles. She would give us a nickel for each of the bottles, right? But she would always store it in the back, right? In the back of the store. Well, the back of the store had a door near the alley. So what we would do sometimes is give her a bunch of bottles, right? We'd buy some candy with it. And then we wait about another hour or so. And then we go all the way to the back and then steal some bottles and then come all the way around again. And then just So, I was just a misguided youth. I was very young. I was like, 10, 12, maybe something like that. So it was young.
Did you hear the cognitive dissonance in your own story then of we would buy some candy with it? You weren't buying candy. You were just facilitating stealing candy via redelivering balls.
Would that be considered like a Ponzi scheme in today's modern vernacular? In business, if you're taking, I wonder what that would be called. It'd be interesting to find out. All right, let's move on from my life of crime.
Okay, let's go to the next one. This is, as I pull it up. So this is one of my bugbears with the internet, Victor. Not necessarily this post itself. Why do I have to click off here? And then I've already been through this and got rid of all the cookie pop-ups. And there's another pop-up. If I go to leave in a second, there'll be something else. Legislation and there we go. There's another pop-up. All this nonsense is ruining the internet. But that to one side.
I agree with you. And by the way, I had that exact same thought this morning when we were, researching for some of the topics.
Yep.
I would have to click off like 3 to 4 different pop-offs just to actually look at anything.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. And then the privacy one at the bottom.
Yep.
Do you want this? Something at the top? Dismiss that. It's like it's irritating.
It's insane. It will change over time, I'm sure. And it might just be that Facebook gobbles up every bit of traffic of all time ever. And so you don't have websites anymore. And there'll be an alternative to Facebook that'll kind of like go alongside it. But at some point, there's going to be platforms that will win by just providing a good experience. Like you will just go to a certain place to get your news or information just because you're not getting spammed full of pop-ups and you can actually consume the content that you're clicking on to consume. But anyway, alas, we digress, Victor. Back to this story. This is from LinkedIn. And this is searchenginejournal.com. And you can find all of these links in the show notes of this episode over at thisweekinsales.com. Sales Navigator has some new updates. So let me just quickly run through these updates now. The reason I've included this is not because this is incredibly interesting. The reason I wanted to include this post, Victor, was I wanted to ask you if these stupid updates actually mean anything. Do you care about it? Should we care about it? Is LinkedIn losing the plot with some of this? Because this big news article explains the first update comes in better visualization in the search experience. They've just improved the UX and the design. Why are you promoting this? Who cares? That should be just an ongoing process. Also allowing now enhanced CRM cards. And this is an update to the CRM integrations with both, I think it's both Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics that they're doing this with. So in LinkedIn, you can now see CRM data in LinkedIn rather than having to export everything to the CRM and do your navigation there. So that's somewhat interesting. And then there's also a new section called Priority Accounts, where you can upload accounts that are the most important to your business. So you can start to narrow some of this stuff down. And then you can keep tracks on employee growth, turnover, headcount growth, and different things that might be valuable to signal trigger events within the accounts, opportunities for you to get in there and grab some of that budget. So with that said, Victor, should we care about any of this, or are we waiting for LinkedIn to truly evolve into its next phase to go from, you will not get this reference whatsoever, but to go from Charmander to Charizard? Are we waiting for that mega evolution of LinkedIn, and that's going to be the big news story? Should we even bother reporting on these small?
Wait. To go from, this is another thing. The amount of spam voicemail calls I get a day, besides looking at stuff on the web, is just killing me. But going back to what was that saying again? The what? The what from the this to that? What the hell was that?
I threw this in here just for you. I'm going to repeat it again a bit slower, see if you can catch it. To go from...
I like the way you said that. I'm going to repeat it slowly for you. Go ahead.
To go from Charmander to Charizard.
What is that?
We'll leave it there. We'll leave that one in. If you are watching this episode live.
By the way,
if you're watching this episode live,
from criticizing LinkedIn. This is a departure from criticizing LinkedIn, which I always like. I don't mind these updates. I really don't. I don't mind these updates at all. I really don't. I think in this case, I think they're warranted. I don't know how often they put these out. I think people who depend on LinkedIn, who are a lot, love to hear about these new updates. So I don't have a problem with this. I think they're interesting updates. I really do. I think LinkedIn is becoming just a very, very central tool to many salespeople. So I'm with this. I'm okay with the updates on this one.
Should we report and talk about it?
I think so. I think there's people out there. I think we have to kind of be a little more open to, we know what we like to talk about, but this is something that, somebody who's really embedded in LinkedIn, companies who are using LinkedIn will want to know about stuff like this, that maybe they don't read it or see it. So I don't know how often this is published. If they're giving me updates every day that I'm getting sick of it, I won't want to see this. But if it's every 3 months,
sure.
Hey, look, keep in mind that they're charging people license money for their software platform. So they have to keep coming out with these little press releases just to let people know, hey, we're making it better. So I'm all good with this, actually.
Okay.
Are you?
No. Why are they doing this? I understand software development is incremental, but I'm just so disappointed that LinkedIn isn't just, I feel like they've got such an opportunity to just, so I get it. It's now owned by a public company, right? There's certain things that you can do. There's certain things that you can't do. You've got to put the shareholders first. I'm just super frustrated that I go on LinkedIn and all I see is a load of bullshit polls. That's all that fills the feed because for whatever reason, polls get way more attention in the LinkedIn algorithm than anything else. The content on there is just rubbish, not interesting whatsoever. And then even when I jump into Sales Navigator and I try and do some prospecting or we've got a bunch of people... the training product now allows people to book a call. If you want to sign to our training product at salesman.org, you have to book a call with us before you can jump in there. So I'll add people on LinkedIn. I'll do a bit of research to make sure they're potentially a good fit before we jump on the call. To save everyone some time, if they're not a good fit, we can wrap it up before we even jump on a Zoom call with them. And even that experience is super lackluster. They've got so much data, so much attention and eyeballs. And I don't understand why. It frustrates me that they're not blowing things up and experimenting and really pushing the boat out there because it could be just so much more than what it is. So that's what frustrates me about these small incremental updates, even though I appreciate it's a software product. They want to do things incrementally.
I was reading a book called The Innovator's Dilemma.
Yep.
A guy by the name of Clayton Christensen. And it talks about how companies really fail in the long run because all they do is focus on one or two things. It's improving the current product, right? Or reducing or increasing operational efficiency, which is basically reducing costs. And says what begins to happen is they focus so much on incremental improvements, kind of what you're alluding to, that it goes beyond the usage of what the average user will use it for. In other words, there's nothing new there. Meanwhile, somewhere, somebody's going to come up with a disruptive technology because they kind of step out of the box and say, what do our current buyers or sellers need today? And maybe LinkedIn will be a victim of that in the long run.
Yep.
They just keep doing gradual things that are not really changing anything. And by the way, just like you, I'm irritated by polls on LinkedIn. I should say I'm not irritated by the polls. Will, I'm irritated by the quality of the questions in the polls.
Yep.
What's your favorite color for a wagon? Is it red, blue, or yellow? It's just some stupid shit like that. I'm sorry.
The rubbish.
But I see some of the dumbest questions on there. And then the thing is, it gets 1,000 responses. I'm like, what are you doing? Why aren't you selling something as opposed to writing something down or taking this poll or surveys?
Yeah.
Sorry,
what I want, Victor, is LinkedIn as a platform with all the users, all the data, all the content. But I want to be able to flip it between different areas of content. I want to be able to flip it so that I consume content from my peers, other sales professionals, other sales trainers, people in our space. And then I want another tab where I consume content and can see posts from my potential customers and see the problems, the questions that they're having as well. All the other crap that's on there, like polls about, and even just personal stuff. I don't care if you post personal stuff on LinkedIn. I'm not morally opposed to it like some people are, that it's a professional network and should stay with professional content. I don't care about stuff like that. But I want to be able to filter some of it because there's so much stuff being posted on there each day. I want to see what you're doing, the content you're sharing on there. I want to be able to comment on your posts and go back and forth with other people in our space as well, our friends and family within the world of sales training and that side of things. And I also want to see my customers, which are kind of in the same space, but salespeople. I want to see what they're up to in a different tab, and I want things to be separated. And LinkedIn can do that. And I don't understand why they don't. And I think from a seller's perspective, and maybe we're biased because we're always talking about sales. Maybe if you're a marketer, you jump onto LinkedIn for a different reason. But if you're a salesperson, I want to be able to do the same as well. If I sell to chief finance officers, I want to see a column of what's going on in the world of CFOs and I want to consume that content 5-10 minutes every morning, then I can have more intelligent conversations with my prospects throughout the day.
I agree. I think what we're saying is the same thing, is that maybe the age of the feed is dead. Do you know what I mean? That scrolling feed? Because there's several problems with that. One is that, as you say, you can't segment out the content you want to see. You got to scroll through stuff. By the way, I'm the guy that also has a personal issue with people posting personal stuff. Like, I've struggled all my life and I finally graduated from Harvard Law School. 10,000 views. Who gives a shit, right? I view LinkedIn as a business platform where you talk about business or things in and around business. I don't care if you rescued a puppy. You know what I mean? While you were going to school, you fed the puppy, actually adopted a couple of mice, and you know what? The cat and the mice got along. They didn't eat each other, type of thing. I see stuff like that, I just go nuts. But what you're saying is, how do we segment the content? Maybe this is where they're getting lazy. Maybe this is where the real update should be, is how do we format the page in such a way that we can access what we want very quickly. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe multiple tabs. I don't know. But I think the age of the feed is getting old. This whole, the feeding thing, it's getting old.
Nope. That is the whole business model, Victor.
What's that?
The whole business model behind all these social media companies is the feed. Because what happens? You start scrolling, it's bullshit, and then there's an advert, and you scroll past it. Then there's a really good post, and then you scroll past it, and that spiked your serotonin, and then you start your serotonin as you start scrolling. Then you get the dopamine for the great post. Then you scroll some more. Then you get another shot of dopamine, and all these social media companies know what posts give engagement. They'll give you some crappy posts purposefully, and then give you the good post to spread out the amount of mileage that you got to scroll through, so they can fit more ads in there. And it's all calculated. I've seen it on LinkedIn myself. I will log in, post something, then not log in again for 2 days, right? I don't spend that much time on there. I use it to push content as opposed to consume content typically. So that is what it is. And I know that if I post something, then log back in 2 minutes later, even if the post has had 20 likes and 3 comments, it doesn't notify me of those likes and comments because it wants me to log in again and not see a notification, and again and not see a notification. Then on the third login, give me all the notifications. So I've built up that serotonin, dopamine feedback loop, and I get more and more addicted to it. The whole business model is based upon the feed and then giving, and it's called intermittent reward patterns. It's how you train dogs. It's the same thing, same principle.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight, have you seen the documentary called The Social Dilemma?
Yep.
Have you seen that on Netflix yet?
Yep.
It describes everything you're just talking about.
Yep.
And so I get that. I get the whole, the dopamine feed and the whole thing, and how they actually hold back on the notifications. So you get that real oh my God, look how many, everybody wants to see the little red circle with number of, with a big number in it. But I still say that for people who want to consume real content, get to what they want very quickly, like you and I, who want to go there with intent and purpose, not mindless scrolling. I would want to see it segmented out, but I don't know.
Yep, I want to see that, but it won't happen. I will. I don't know what I'll do. I'll do something extreme if that happens. I know LinkedIn of testing going back to a full chronological feed as opposed to doing what I just described. And maybe that's somewhat of the benefit, somewhat of the solution for this. At least it's chronological. At least you can scroll through the recent posts rather than just being given what the algorithm thinks that you want to learn. Well, that's anyway.
It makes I saw one of your posts, right? Mm-hmm. And I forgot what it was, but it was an interesting post. But then I noticed that below it said 1 week ago it was posted. And I go, well, why am I seeing this now? Why didn't I see it a week ago? Right? And so anyway, I just thought I'd find that interesting. All right. Can we move on to labor shortage? I want to talk labor.
Yes.
All right. I found this article I thought you might find interesting. What labor shortage? ? Technology-enabled sales teams don't miss a beat by Kevin McGurl. What a last name. A large portion of veteran sales talent is deciding now is the time to retire. These are my homies. Well, my homies are retiring. My baby booming homies are retiring. Implementing tech that reduces redundant work and delivers relevant insight is a key to achieving growth. So by the fourth quarter of 2021, I thought this was interesting. 65% of business economists reported an increase in sales. Not surprising, but 57% reported experiencing labor shortage, according to the National Association of Business Economics, January 2020, in their business condition survey. All that to say this, a lot of people are quitting, but the numbers are still going up. And what's filling the gap? Technology. And I'll close out with this one. In this market, sales leaders are thinking outside the box for recruitment. And this, I thought, for you and I was interesting, Will, since we have both an academy for sales. They're hiring more entry-level salespeople as well as experienced individuals from other unrelated markets and verticals. So I think it's interesting how they're trying to figure out, how do we bridge the gap? People are retiring. We knew this already, right? Well, how do we fast track onboard people quicker? And, I think this is just an interesting number that sales are going up. People are leaving. We got to fill it, the gap in with technology. And I'll just say young bodies. Your thoughts on this?
That's very rude to young people who are coming up and trying to hustle, and you're just considering them like a meat sack that can do some calls.
Yeah, I am. At this point, I am. You know why? Because they have no talent yet. Once they go through the training and they have some talent, they'll leave the meat sack category into like real deal category. Yeah, I'm being that blunt with them. I'm being honest with them, Will.
But these are real human beings,
These
Victor.
real human beings. They have real feelings.
They have feelings and emotions, and my generation's scared of
with bounded
rejection.
energy, with aspirations, with dreams of manna falling from the sky. I get it.
And we're not just concerned about making money, Victor. The millennials and whoever comes after millennials, we're concerned about social issues and doing the right thing and all this like bullshit as well.
Yeah, man. Like sales lives matter. Yes.
Can't comment on that politically, but it's a weird topic because I'm not convinced that people are just. I've seen loads of these articles, like the Great Quit, and
yeah, the Great. I've never heard that one. I haven't heard that one yet.
I've seen it talked about American industry. In the past few months, of people are just sick of being abused, like not physically abused, but being taken advantage or people are assuming that they are being taken advantage of. People are allegedly quitting jobs because they're getting paid too little, working too long. Well, that can't be true, because otherwise, I don't know, in the UK you have like the social curve for people. If you can't get a job, the government look after you for a certain period of time. You can get housing and stuff, and I think on the grand scheme of things, that's a good thing. If someone's really down, you don't want them on the streets. You want people to be supported, and council houses and stuff in the UK. I don't know how things work in the US. It's probably dependent on different states and stuff.
Very similar, very similar.
But if all these thousands of people are just quitting the jobs because they think the job's rubbish, they can't all just be going on social benefits, because we would be hearing about that. That would be the bigger news than people just quitting the jobs. So I'm not sure I believe this idea of the big quit. I'm not sure I believe that the boomers and stuff are retiring, of course, and the population is aging. So maybe there are physically less people coming up to replace what was happening with a previous few generations worth of job roles. But I keep hearing about labour shortages. I keep hearing about people quitting jobs, the big quit, all this kind of stuff. But I can't believe that it's true, because in 3 years from now, 18 months from now, the entire Western economy is just going to collapse if that is the case.
Well, it's a blend of things. One is, I think the baby boomers are getting close to retiring anyway, right? Yeah. And I forgot what the number was, but it was like 8,500 a day. This is pre-pandemic, by the way. So they're retiring, right? But I pulled up this article because I remember reading something, and this is CNS News. We'll put the link in the show notes. But listen to this. So CNS News, article by Susan Jones. This is November 2021. So let's say 3 months ago. 100,000, over 100 million people are not in the labor force for the 14th straight month. 14th straight month, no job, and they're not looking. So the Labor Department, Bureau of Labor Statistics, announced on Friday that 100,450,000 to be specific in this country were not in the labor force in October, up 38,000 from 100,412. So this is the 14th straight month that this not in the labor force number has remained above 100 million. Now, let's do some simple math here. We have about 330 million people here, so a third is not actually in the labor force. And the way that we do numbers here, Will, you probably maybe it's similar over there, is that if you're not in the labor force for 3 months, I think it is, you're no longer counted as unemployed. You're underemployed. So there's two different numbers here, and people always get them confused. They think there's unemployed, then there's underemployed. What this is saying is the underemployment rate is about 100 million people, which is kind of scary.
But
so these are some real numbers of people not in the workforce.
Is that of people of a certain working age? Because if you get over 65s and then under 15 to 18-year-olds, then that's probably a third of the population right there anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how to parse the numbers out. I think total citizens of the U.S. is about, I think it's like 420 million. I think the labor force is like 330 million.
I understand.
Don't hold me to that. But even if you take some of that number away, that's a lot of people. That 100 million people. And so I think what do you call it? The great quit, the great resignation, as I always often hear. I mean, there's some realness to it. I just think it's really fascinating how people are choosing to leave for different reasons. I think it's just a mixed bag of why people are stepping out. I just think it's interesting how technology and now being more flexible in finding young people, even from different verticals, to come over and fill those holes is probably the way to go if you want to kind of get, the labor numbers up.
Can we be real here for a second, Victor?
Do it, man. We're always real. Well, what do you mean, can we be real? It's like an exception. It's like, we're always real. So yeah, okay, why don't you be realer? How's that?
Could we be out of touch with some of this? Because I don't know anyone, and this is not by like conscious decision or anything like that. I don't hang out with anyone or have any friends who work minimum wage jobs. And you spend time with people who are similar to you and similar careers, and most of my friends now are entrepreneurs. And I didn't grow up with entrepreneurs. It's obviously something that changes over time and stuff. And so I can talk for myself, but I'll ask you the same question. Could it be that we're just slightly out of touch in that there are a lot of people quitting, there is a lot of crap going down, but because I don't hire those, I don't have anyone on our team who works minimum wage. Everyone gets paid more than that. And I don't have any friends in that space. And, my dad volunteers like a homeless shelter and stuff. So he might have some thoughts and views and opinions and see some of this. But I don't volunteer there. Could it be just that me and you are sat here just oblivious to some of this and reading it in news articles when it is happening and it's a huge problem, but unless you're on the ground floor, maybe you don't see some of it.
Correct. In other words, you're clumping me in with you, and I refuse to accept that clumping. You're an elitist. I'm not. I have family members who are making minimum wage. I know people who do minimum wage, maybe a little bit above minimum wage, and they're struggling. Do you know what I mean? Joking aside, I mean, I know people, Will, who are like, not making a lot of money. Just, for them, making, $30,000, $40,000 a year, which is not a lot of money, not a little money, but it's like, it's harder when lastly, the inflation as of, I think it was last month, is 7.5% here in the US. So everything is just skyrocketing in terms of pricing. So even one has to question now, because we've pumped so much money into the system. This is not a political statement. It's just a reality of what the financial system is doing. They've pumped so much money during the pandemic into the system. I think the number is like 40% of all the money circulating in the market right now is new money, right, over the last year. And so we're seeing price increases everywhere. So I think what's happening is that people are going, wait a minute, even if I made the like McDonald's here, Wendy's, they're offering the minimum $15 minimum. That's what everybody was crying about, because it was $8.75. They said, well, we need to be at 15. Politicians fought against it. Now they're just saying, okay, we're going to give you 15 plus some bennies on the side. Starbucks actually pays for some of your college and some other things. And people are still going, I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if that's enough. Now, my question is, if they're not working, what are they doing? Right? Like, how many people can stay on the dole or exist on the dole? I don't know. It's a mess right now, I think, in general. It's a mess right now for folks who are looking to get back into work. And then I think people are evaluating, do I really want to go back to work for like, $15 an hour? That's $30,000 a year. I can probably get some government dole, and just live on that for a while. So I think it's a tough one, Will. But I think you got a mixed bag. You got people who are retiring. A lot of people are doing the whole check. I don't want to do this anymore. And then one more wrinkle, and not to go down the rabbit hole too far on this one, but keep in mind, a lot of these kids are staying at home, right? So people have to work from home. And so a lot of parents are probably going, I can't afford to work, because I got to take care of kids. So I think unless kids get back to school start opening again, that's going to be an issue.
Where are you at in Georgia now with all this? Because my man Boris Johnson, which we'll talk about later on in the show, in Culture Corner, he announced yesterday that I think the end of this, I might be slightly off this, but the end of this month, I think all laws regarding to COVID in the UK are just going to be dissolved. So there's not going to be any legal. You won't have to legally self-isolate or anything like that. That's all just going to disappear. We're just going to go back to normal. Where are you in the US with all this?
I think the majority of states have either, eliminated any type of mandates, especially I think the only one that are keeping in place is maybe masks indoors somewhere, right? But where you see I'll say the extreme point of views are in the coastal states like New York and California. They're just meant like severe lockdown, right? But the numbers don't bear it out. And again, this is not my opinion. It's just what the data is showing is that even on some of these states that have the harshest lockdown, their numbers are no different than those who are not as locked down. Like, for example, Florida compared to California and things of that nature. And you see the politics going back and forth on who's right, who's wrong. I'm from the school that, you look at Omicron now, it's not as dangerous or as deadly as the Delta variant, right? And so I think we're going to have to learn to live with this. And I don't know what the number here is in the US as far as how many people have been vaccinated, but I think we're above the 70% range. Sure. I don't know. Where are you guys at over there?
80
in the UK.
Plus. When last thing I saw about the US, it was around 50% vaccinated.
Okay. We should look that up. I thought it was higher than that for some reason. Are we that much rebels? I know Canada's like 85 and they're having their issues. So I don't know. So we're not as bad here in Georgia where I am specifically. You can walk into the stores and they'll say mask required, or some say mask suggested. We suggest using a mask, and they have all the masks in the front. If you want to take one, it's like, it's up to you. And typically when I walk in the store, it's usually about 60-40 split. 60 do have still wear the mask, 40% down. We're just kind of casual about it. I don't know. Is that similar over there?
No, I think you still got to wear a mask inside for the moment in shops and stuff. I can just imagine you walking into the store. I wouldn't call it a store. I call it a shop. But walking into the store, Victor, taking a mask and then just putting it like on your forehead, so it's not doing anything. Then just walking around just to annoy people. I imagine that's the kind of shenanigans.
I put it under my chin actually. My wife's like, put it up. So, and by the way, so as of the end of January, fully vaccinated was 63%. At least one dose was 75%.
Sure,
that's where we're at. But if you go for fully vaccinated, whatever that definition is, I don't know if it means with the booster or non-booster, but so the number's between 63 and 75, somewhere in there.
Fair enough. Okay, well, let's move on from this. I don't think this is productive for the audience. I can't find, usually, Victor, there's a way for me to pull what we're talking about back into improving sales results.
No. I think the point I want to make there is that, this pandemic is having an effect on people retiring and trying to find new bodies. In Culture Corner, I want to talk about this one right here, if we can just whoosh over to Culture Corner. And
hold on. I've got a tale to tell you. You just whooshed over one of my articles that I wanted to share.
Where? Oh, I missed that one. My bad. Sorry about that.
We'll just be quick. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I thought this would be interesting with your expertise in AI. If I can just pull it up. Cool. Where do salespeople fit in the digital world? This is from Harvard Business Review. You're going to find this article and everything else that we talk about in the show notes this episode over at thisweekinsales.com. Victor, the reason that I thought this was interesting, it's an interesting article. We can run through it or we can perhaps skim some of it. And it's talking about similar topics to what we've talked about on the show so far with regards to salespeople needed in some places and they're just going to be replaced by AI in the others. Well, I had a chap called Dr. Roland Rust on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. I think it aired last week, at the beginning of this week. He's the author of the book, The Feeling Economy, and he showed me on the show that AI, in his, he's an esteemed professor in this topic, right? AI is going to replace everything other than high emotional intelligence tasks within the next 5 years. And he was super pumped up and adamant that salespeople are going to be one of the few job careers that is going to be less hit by all of this, because you need that human-to-human interaction. It's very difficult for AI to replicate some of this. We've talked about chatbots and things in the past. He reckons they're years and years away from being effective at having emotionally charged conversations, which typically any conversation about money has some kind of a emotional charge attached to it, rightly or wrongly, depending on people's feelings and beliefs about cash, right? But What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that kind of time frame with regards to AI just wiping out great areas of the job market? And do you agree that this idea of the feeling economy, where high intensity emotional intelligence tasks, such as like my missus is a doctor, tons of her work is going to be thrown out and given to AI to do, if it's looking at scans, looking at data, looking at test results, but you're still going to want a doctor to both break good or bad news to a patient and also effectively communicate the results of the AI-led data gathering to a patient and the families as well. So do you agree with this idea that for the next decade or so, we're going to be living in the feeling economy?
I think, he's parsing it very nicely. AI will replace everything other than high EI, emotional intelligent work, right? I think it will replace all the rational intelligent work. How's that for taking the opposite view of that? And he's absolutely right. It will replace all that, as you say, looking at a CAT scan or whatever it may be. Yeah, the AI will take care of that. When you look at the legal business, we talk about this, right? The AI can actually go through all law, all whatever, all the different aspects of law and actually find what it needs to find to make its case. So all that's going to be true, Will. So I hate to use the word hybrid, but that's exactly what we're going to wind up having. Now, the point about sales still being essential, I agree with that. I mean, how do you have, if it's a transactional sale that you can do on Amazon, of course, salespeople, bye-bye, and retail, bye-bye, right? But some of the things when you move on the further down the complexity spectrum, as far as something that I really need to talk through, like for example, I want to buy a new camera, Will, and I really need somebody to walk me through why this one is better than that one. I need that. And I'll go back to what Brent Adamson said, a guy over at Gartner who's a part of the Challenger sale. He said, it's not about what people know, it's how they feel about what they know. In other words, their confidence that will drive that decision making. And I think that's an important, I love when he said that, because I go, he's right. You got to make people feel comfortable with that decision, give them a high confidence booster. So I think that's kind of what he's saying.
Yep.
And if I can add to this, by the way, Will, did you know, wait a minute, I didn't even bring this up. This is like breaking news, man. I don't know how did I tell you that I came up with a new phrase for the world of selling? I'm the first one. Did you see my post? The intra-prospecting phrase. I've come up with intra-prospecting. Now, not that it's anything new, I just thought I'd give it a name. I define intra-prospecting. By the way, I looked it up on Google, no searches, 0. Intra-prospecting is finding business within a business, right? Besides upselling and cross-selling, is I'm working with a technology company on helping their salespeople highlight things for, let's say, business units within that company, and highlighting areas where they may be losing money or opportunities to gain money. And I called it intra-prospecting because you're trying to find business within a business. You're trying to create something out of nothing. And see, that's the stuff you can't replace. And that's why I think salespeople are really going to dominate upselling, cross-selling, and then this intra-prospecting. So I think that's a fascinating aspect, but I think he's right. I don't know about the 5 years. I mean, who knows? He could be right. Your thoughts?
We'll soon find out. 5 years in technology, and even just doing the show, we're on episode 50, which we should celebrate and give ourselves a pat on the back. Episode 50 of This Week in Sales. 5 years is nothing, right? It's going to fly by like that. We're going to see a completely different world. We just saw Facebook's stock price absolutely tank last week. The biggest drop in any company in stock market history, because people are idiots.
Was it that big? I didn't even look. I know they went down. A bunch of, like, even Twitter took a hit.
It was like $250 billion knocked off the market cap.
Whoa. Okay.
But
that's a bad day.
But it's not a bad day. Obviously, I'm not a financial analyst. This is not investment advice and all these other caveats. I bought Facebook stock when it went down, Victor, because they've got all the different business units. They're making billions and billions and billions of dollars. They're doing incredibly well. There's just one particular unit. I think it's essentially the VR unit, and that lost a load of money. But it's still in research and development phase. It's going to lose money it might lose money for the next 10 years, because that'll be the cash cow 10 years from now. So I'm pretty confident institutional investors who are professional investors weren't selling Facebook stock then. They were probably buying it in this big dip. Maybe there was a bit of an inflated bubble around Facebook prior to that. They also announced that for the first time, essentially ever, they've lost users quarter on quarter.
Yeah.
It's the first time they've not had like essentially unlimited growth. So that plays into it as well. But yeah, I bought stock.
Interesting.
Facebook, if they can do anything with the concept of the metaverse, and they own
Correct.
the best VR headset on the market, right? It can only compete with Valve's Steam Deck and their the Valve VR products. And they're a multi-billion-dollar company, but they're nowhere near the size of Facebook. If Facebook can continue with Meta and Oculus, they're just going to own the world that we live in. Never mind, like the social network that we post memes on. So I'm still hot.
By the way, I think Zuckerberg is smart. You know, he
course,
may
he's a
seem a little
robot.
insane right now with the metaverse, but I'm like, you know, 5-10 years from now, what a brilliant move on the metaverse. You know, because I think the scrolling, I'm telling you, man, it's going to go bye-bye eventually, and maybe it'll be replaced by some type of VR thing. Maybe you can scroll with your eyeballs, but I think these platforms are getting old, man. These platforms are getting old. I mean, when was the last time you actually went on Twitter for anything useful?
I
can't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, LinkedIn. I mean, I'm like you. I push. I don't pull from LinkedIn. Facebook, almost the same thing. I'm always pushing, not pulling, because it's too much garbage to go through. Instagram has me hooked because I love the video clips, and I love getting information from sources that are not the typical mainstream channels. I think that's where the real value of Instagram comes in. I think they're being very smart about how they're doing the business plan. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see more technology in 5 years.
Spending too much time on Instagram looking at women with big booties.
Guilty as charged, man. I'm going to own that. I'm going to own that. Okay, I'm going to own that.
Oh God, I don't think you heard the comment I just made, but that'll make an amazing clip anyway. So we'll continue with that. Victor, let's move on to Culture Corner. So this is your Postmate about work from home.
Look at this. It's time to reassess the work from home and hybrid work movement. Dan Ferrisy wrote this article. Again, well, we kind of know what all this is, but there's some interesting viewpoints here. I wanted to get your viewpoint. A portion of the workforce has unreservedly embraced the work from home movement. Would you love that phrasing? Unreservedly embraced the work from home movement, while others are looking for office environments to be more functional and enticing. I can see the collision of two worlds coming. For many WFHs, I don't even like that phrase, WFH employees, commuting hours have now been rolled into working hours. That means many work from home employees are putting in another 10 hours. The mental and physical exertion combined with the relative isolation of home office is taking its toll on people. Thinking mentally well, because the time they said, I don't have to be in the car is being rolled up into, I got to work more hours from home. I thought that was interesting. Your thoughts on that so far? Do you see that a lot? Do you find yourself, well, you never had to go to an office, right? Not in the last few years, right?
No. So this is my office where I am right now. So I purposefully have this place to get out of the house and away from puppies and me missus and commitments and the dishes not being done, and that frustrated me and wasting time on crap like that when I should be selling and closing deals and creating content, right?
By the way, I want to be clear. Will said puppies, even though he pronounces it as poppies. So he's not a drug dealer. He's getting away from his dog, not the poppies. It's just the way you said it, Will. I just want to make sure.
Just Walter, the ridiculous 1-year-old golden retriever. So I like to be able to get away. If I had to work if I lived in a small flat with my missus and my dog, and I was working all day from the kitchen counter, it would drive me nuts. I just wouldn't be able to focus. Would not be able to focus. Now, with that said, I also control this environment, right? I've got the studio space here. I've got a nice office there. Because this is a big, massive flat that I rent and use commercially when maybe we shouldn't. What would be the kind of the third bedroom over there, it's set up as a gym, so I can come here, work out, train, get all the jobs done that I need to do, and then go home having done my work for the day, including exercise and everything else. Now, if I had to go to the office and then go to the gym, and then I've got to come back in between and look after the dog and take him out for a walk at lunch or whatever, I've got to do this and this, then the environment that me talking about work from home wouldn't work either way. I'm lucky and, somewhat luck, and I've engineered this business so that I can do deals, be on the phone, and train salespeople in an environment that I want to do it in. But So I can understand the frustrations. If you're in a two-bedroom flat, a studio flat, and maybe your partner, your husband, wife, girlfriend, whatever, is also working from home, and you're both sat on the edge of the bed with your laptops, it must be an absolute nightmare. I can feel the frustration of that. Flip side of that, if you've got a big 5-bedroom house like what we've got at home, I could find a room to do it in, and I'd survive, and I'd rather do that than go to an office. So I don't know what question you asked me, Victor, but I'm just giving you 15 answers to another dozen different questions.
It's interesting, but I like what you highlighted for people, that you separated the two spaces, right? Mm-hmm. Where you go to work and then at home. Like here, we have a big house, so it's all enclosed. So the studio's up here, my office is downstairs. So sometimes I feel like I'm never leaving. I think for you got that. There's a physical walking away from your home. I think that just kind of has a mental reset. What I've learned to do, Will, is I go to Starbucks every morning, right? I give them my money. And believe it or not, that creates the mental break I need from the house. That really does help me mentally. The coffee's overpriced. I get that. But I think that when everything rolls in together, it's like you never leave the environment. And what this article is trying to address, the second part of it is that, first of all, they're feeling the fatigue of that mental blending or conflation of two things, which is home and work in one place. And what they're suggesting in the article, when you really get into it, is what do people want? And I think they're taking the right approach. They're starting to think about what is it that people want, and what they want is to be able to work from home, but also have a flexible work environment they can go to, like you have. You have, I think, the ideal situation, right? You're not too far from home. You can just walk over to the office, do your studio work, walk right back, go walk Walter, back and forth. And I think that's kind of what this article is saying, is that this hybrid living or hybrid working is going to be a new reality for us.
Yep. Look, I would rather. So I have to drive to the office. It's like a 10-minute drive. You could probably walk it. If the snow was bad or something, I could walk it. It might take 40 minutes, maybe a bit longer.
Get an electric bike, man. Next year, this summer, electric bike for Will.
The roads are just too insane around here, mate. Absolutely mental. I don't trust driving past a cyclist and them not doing something stupid and damaging my car. Never mind me being the meat sack on the electric bike, dodging other people's cars. But yeah, it is mega being able to. But I know I've engineered this. There are lots. Maybe here's business idea number 742 from This Week in Sales, Victor Antonio. Mm-hmm. There's lots of co-working spaces for startups, for small businesses. Maybe they should pitch it as a co-working space for salespeople, where you can go for the day, you pay your $50, $50, whatever it is, to work from the co-working space, and there are spaces for salespeople specifically where it's going to be relatively quiet. You can do your calls. There's not people pricking about and going to distract you and make you look stupid on a sales call if there's someone running around behind you in the background on your Zoom. Maybe that's a business right there. Salespeople. That's interesting. Maybe you do like 2 or 3 days. Maybe you just, the best you can, collate all your calls, time block out your calendar so that you can do all your calls or your prospecting, your cold calling, whatever it is, from a co-working space. You're around other people that are doing it, which is going to motivate a lot of salespeople.
I actually like this idea, Will. I like where you're going with this idea. I could see if I knew I had to do 2 hours of cold calling, right?
Yep.
Drive to the location, grab my cup of coffee, walk into my little booth, right? Yep. Fire up my CRM, hit the 2 hours calls, and again, that you're in that environment. I actually like your idea.
Yep.
It's rare that I like your idea, but it happens. Record this podcast. There it is. I like it. Will's idea.
I don't think that's true. What? I think you begrudgingly agree with me more often than not, Victor. I think that's a nice little business for someone if they get the rock and rolling. Because I would pay if we had a bunch of sales team that worked remote but were local enough to go to somewhere like this. I'd pay for that for them. If it's going to be more, it makes sense, right? If it's going to be more productive, if it's going to make their time that I'm paying them for more productive anyway, I'd rather them do that than have another random sales stack and a bit of software added on top that's not adding any value after the first few times of using it.
Yeah, it's almost like if you take a call center and you put some steroid into it, right? By that I mean it's not just you in a cubicle, very boring, but something that creates a very, just a nice sales environment where you're seeing other people selling. You feel that energy because everybody's doing their thing, everybody's dialing, whatever it may be. I think I love that idea. I actually really like your idea.
Yeah, and this would still work for small business owners, startup founders, people who want to be in that environment and I guess it's more for extroverts who want to be around other people, who gain energy from being around other people, versus I gain energy from just, I'll do the calls, I'll do the extroverted work, but then I want to be on my own for a little bit to recuperate. So maybe this is, we can call it.
I like that.
I think we call it the boiler room.
I like the idea of going somewhere, doing my prospecting and being in that state of mind. I love that.
Have really nice lighting in there, so your Zoom calls look really smart, like really clean backgrounds for everyone. There we go. We just need now about like 10 million in startup money to buy a load of property to run all this from. Yeah,
that's a great idea. All right, man. I love that idea. All right.
Okay, so final.
By the way, that was worth hanging out all the way towards the end just for that right there.
We're going to make some people rich as we go through this. My final post here before we run through some audience questions. So if you're watching this live and you've got any questions for us, drop a comment in the box below, whether you're watching this on YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching it. If you're the one subscriber who consumes this content on Twitch as well, leave a comment below and we'll answer your questions towards the end of the show. We'll spend 5-10 minutes going through them. My final post, I don't know if this translates across the US, Victor, but I'll throw it up on the screen here. A literal picture from it. This is our friend Boris Johnson. Throughout the lockdowns, there were a number of parties at number 10 Downing Street, which is house and flat, but also it's an office building, right, where all politicians and all their aides and everyone gets together and does the work. These sons of bitches were off partying with the rest of the country.
I knew it was coming. I
was trying to not say anything too like verbose with my language then. These sons of bitches were off partying, drinking champagne, having parties in the garden when us plebs were locked down. So my question to you, Victor, is, and like I'm not even that familiar with Boris and his politics, right? But I like him as a person. I'd love to go for a pint with him. I think he'd be hilarious. I think he'd be just so full of just nonsense that you'd have a really good chat with him. You could have some good debates. If Boris was on this show right now, he'd be debating us and probably running rings around both of us, right? But should we be surprised that these politicians are having parties again in the garden? And then that image I just showed you, there's a bottle of champagne. They're having a Christmas quiz, right? When everyone should have been social distancing. You could meet at work, but you should be social distanced at work. And also, you shouldn't be meeting just for drinks and glasses of wine in the garden, regardless, during these lockdowns. Should we be surprised that British politicians are doing this? And should we be angry for them breaking COVID laws? Or should we just be I feel like I'm just so drained from all these different events now that we should just get over it, get on with it, and just keep pushing forward as to the next shenanigans that's going to come out of the world of politics?
I mean, should we be surprised? No, of course not. It happens here in the U.S. People throw parties. Politicians will throw parties, and even after they're kind of like wearing their masks. The phrase a lot of politicians like to use here is that mask is political theater. In other words, they only put them on when the cameras are on. And so, I mean, how many pictures have been published already in the U.S. of politicians, prominent politicians, who, on one hand, they're saying, hey, wear masks, social distance, all that stuff, and then turn around and have a party or, picture at a dinner table with a bunch of friends or, literally throw a full-blown 60th year party. There's a hint for those of you who get that one. And then later to discover these videos and pictures come out that there were no masks at the whole party. But yet they'll get back on camera, put their mask on and say, wear a mask. There's something criminal about that. There is something criminal about that. It's just the hypocrisy of the elites is probably a good title for a book.
Victor, do you think that these individuals do this from a place of, I don't need to do this, but these plebs need to do this? Or if you actually spoke to them about it, and you'd never get an interview to talk about this kind of stuff on the record, right? But if you were in the pub with Boris and you were chatting to him, do you think it would be a case of, well, we're all working really hard, and someone brought in a few glasses wine, and then people just gathered around, and it just happened, and then the paparazzi took a picture, and to be clear, this happened like 12 times over the course of the year, so I'm kind of leaning into being a bit too lenient, perhaps. But do you think if you spoke to them as a real person, they are malicious about, I'll do one thing, you're going to do another? Or do you think if you spoke to them on a human level, there'd be, oh, it just can't have happened, or we thought no one would find out, and everyone was tested and no one got COVID on the back of it, so we thought it'd be fine. Do you think do you think these kind of things from politicians are malicious, or do you think it's just a case of, oh, it'll be fine, no one will worry about it?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but if I go into a bar with Boris, Victor goes into a bar with Boris, right? It'll go something like this, I think. Look, mate, here's the deal. I'm in politics, right? I got all this power. I like to stay in power. Now, I got to tell people to be safe, because if something happens and they're not safe, then I'm going to get blamed for this, and I'm not going to be in political power anymore. So you know what I do? I'm going to tell people, let's play the safest hand here, which is, get vaccinated, wear your mask, social distance, do that. Do I really believe it? I kind of believe it, but maybe at times I don't. And at times I don't, that's when I'm in the bar here with you, Victor, drinking a beer without my mask. I don't know. I don't know what these guys are thinking, because on one hand, they say follow the science. And then when the science says go this way, and they don't agree with it, they go, well, I don't want to follow the science anymore. It's amazing to me. I'm telling you, I look forward to the 20-year documentary of this. 20 years later, looking back, where you get the real truth of what's going on. My favorite picture was, I think it's either the mayor or the governor of California took a picture with Magic Johnson, the basketball player, right? He wasn't wearing, him and there was a third person, they weren't wearing masks, right? So they get criticized. And the mayor or the governor, I think it was the mayor of California or Los Angeles, said, well, I was holding my breath when I took the picture. That was his way out.
See, that's just stupid.
The comedy of this stuff is just hilarious, man. It's hilarious.
That is inexcusable, and that person is just thick, right?
That's gaslighting at its best. I held my breath while we took the picture. Then I slapped my bass bag out. You're like, come on.
So
man.
I've got no sympathy for that whatsoever. But I do have. I think I would have sympathy if I sat down with some of these people, had a conversation with them. And maybe not. Look, a lot of politicians, I can talk about the UK more so than the US. They go to Eton, they go to the equivalent of an Ivy League school. They're at Oxford, Cambridge. They're meeting with people that us plebs would never get to meet with. I'm using this word, and I think this is an appropriate word. I'm not meaning to add any negative connotation to this, but they're groomed from a young age to go into politics. David Cameron, Boris Johnson, would compete at university. I think they were in the same year, the same classes at Eton when they were going through their different classes that I'm learning maths, English, science. They're learning how to speak, debate, and all this, and row club and all this kind of stuff. There's probably a few secret societies in there as well. So maybe I'm humanizing these people too much. I mean, obviously everyone's a human, everyone has emotions and thoughts and feelings, but I'd like to think perhaps that if you got hold of Boris and you're like, why were you such a dick? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. These things happened at the time. So with that, Victor,
I think there's there's a lot of, I'll call them like social eddies we don't know flowing in the background that's going on with these guys, and we'll never get a view of what that is, what that looks like. And so it'll be hard for us to get a real understanding of why they do the things they do, because some of it. But I think I'll say it this way, it lacks moral courage. You know what I mean? If you're going to say something, then live by it. If you don't believe it, then, live by that as well. And I think that's what we don't see a lot of, is moral courage.
You can't do it.
Which is like,
there's so many people with the knives ready to stab you in the back, in the same party, in the same room. They support you 1 minute. Next, they're just trying to get, a leg up. They're going to stand on you to get where they want to be. It's an unhealthy environment. And maybe you need to be somewhat unhealthy to want to survive and thrive in there. I don't think, unless you tell me otherwise, you've been on the planet, a good 87 years longer than I have. I can't put my finger on any politician that just seemed like a normal person with normal values, right?
I'll tie this to sales. I'm going to make the tie here. Ready? Here comes the bridge.
Okay.
Here comes the bridge. So when I was in engineering, I used to think salespeople didn't do anything, right? All they did was take people out to dinner and play golf, right? That was my view of them. Then I moved into sales, and I realized that there's much more to sales than I thought there was, right? And then I started criticizing marketing because I never got into marketing. And I think maybe it's like that sometimes, is that unless we're on that side of the fence or in that position, we don't really see all of it. I'm not saying this excuses some of their breaches of conduct. I'm not saying that excuses that, but I wonder what else is happening in the background that we don't see or understand. So I'll give them, I guess, a little bit of leeway. That's all I got.
I like this idea.
I'm
Joe
trying to be
Rogan popularized
cordial here and
this.
diplomatic. What's that?
I like this idea, and Joe Rogan on his podcast popularized this. Donald Trump went into office saying he was going to release all these files on UFOs and the Kennedy assassination, and conspiracy theorists all over the globe were getting excited, and then nothing came out. And I think a lot of the Kennedy files were actually then remade, what there'd be a phrase, but remade top secret for another 70 years. And so Joe Rogan postulates that Trump sits down and a bunch of massive fellas in military suits sits down around him and goes, right.
Man, see? Here's how it's going down, Trump.
Oh, no, not like that. The exact opposite. They sit down and go, look, that fella there is an alien. This person here is 900 years old. There's this conspiracy is true. That conspiracy, we're living in this infinite universe.
By the way, you know what? This is fun. Now, this is going to get a little political here, but I remember when Trump was really going after Obama, whether he was a citizen or not. And, you know, the documents were fake, the records were fake. And I'm thinking, okay, when you became president, I'm sure you had access to that information. You could have looked up and just confirmed it, right? That it wasn't fake. You know what I mean? But it's interesting how all the things they said they were going to look into when they went into office, they totally forget when they got in office. We're still going, hey, man, I thought you were going to look into all these things. You know,
that's what I'm saying. I reckon that Joe Rogan popularized this as and it's obviously it's a daft way
you're an alien.
You're an
alien. He's an alien. He's from another planet.
You could get into that seat, the White House, that big Oval Office, and you could have a meeting, and your whole world is just turned upside down. It turns out.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe we don't understand what's going on behind the curtain, and that's why we're kind of going, huh? Why isn't this so simple? And I think when we see politicians go into office and they kind of just change their tune, maybe they've been exposed to the Matrix.
The Matrix.
And they go, oh, the Matrix, yeah.
Well, if you've got any questions about the sales matrix, drop them in the comments below. I'll go through a couple of these questions now as we run through audience questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to try and go through these the best I can. Let's have a look. We have Kawaya, hopefully I'm pronounced that right, says, hi guys, nice to see you live. Doug Lehman, the man, says, what it do? I don't know what that means. But thank you for...
It's just a phrase, it's like what's happening, what it do?
Cool, what it do?
Yeah.
Jesse asks...
if you use it, you just, what it do?
Jesse asks, I have a question that I've been waiting to ask you guys. How would you generate leads for a B2B company, so the company's workplace solutions, via cold calling, email, LinkedIn? Any tips for a beginner? Victor, do you have any tips if you're selling workplace solutions for Jesse with cold outreach?
I mean, all the above, that's the easy answer, right? Prospect and everything. I still believe it's like, if I'm doing workplace solutions, which I have no idea what you sell, but I have to believe they're solutions for the workplace, right? I would figure out where my biggest return on investment would be. Would that be office buildings, for example? And if that's it, then I figure out, who owns these office buildings, who makes all the big decisions on the big primary contracts. And I would go after the head of the snake, so to speak, instead of selling to individual offices. I'd go for the whole building. And so right now, I think that it's also a tough market to be in right now because a lot of these, is it like this over there where you're at, Will? There's a lot of office buildings just empty.
Dude, there are office buildings empty that I'm inquiring about just outright buying in cash, and the price of them versus 2 quarters ago has gone up. I don't know what they're expecting to happen because they're not selling. No one's going back to the office. We've just been discussing it. And the commercial real estate here is going up and up and up. So something's going on. I'm literally, we'll talk about it off air, but substantial cash that we've saved in the business for nearly half a decade to buy some commercial property to maybe have one floor as our offices, another floor as offices to rent out, something like that. That's my kind of plan with things. The price of everything's going up. You should be going down, right? The market demand economics.
It should be. Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. But back to the question is, I would try to go after these office buildings. If that's not it, who else would be buying? Like, for example, I'm making things up. I would look for like manufacturing, people who are doing big business right now. There's another way of looking at it. What if you go after markets that are doing big business? For example, I've mentioned this before. Well, I work with people in the pool industry, in the pest control industry, anything that has to do with residential sales. That market is just booming. So I would ask myself, within residential or commercial sales, where can I actually find some people who are actually expanding? That's the big question, is what businesses are actually expanding right now and growing? And that's where I would begin my hunt for leads.
Sure. I would perhaps go, everything that Victor said, I'd go back a few steps. I'd be looking at what is my value proposition. It needs to be super defined. You need to test it via reaching out, sharing it in a cold email, sharing it over cold calls, make sure that people are responding to it. So you're starting from step one correctly. I then look at the people I want to sell into, their own buyer's journey, focus on that rather than your seller's journey, at least at first. Find out where they are in the buying cycle, where you want to get them to, what needs to happen for them to go one place to another. Can you facilitate that? Because that then turns a cold call into from, hey, it's blah, 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 and I sell blah, 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 into a cold call of, hey, I work with people who are here. Is that you? Yes, no, maybe. And we get them to there. Is that where you want to go? Yeah. Okay, well, do you want to book a call next Tuesday and discuss how we can go about facilitating that? So I'd look at everything Victor said, but perhaps a few steps before that, your value proposition, confirm it, refine it, make sure that it works in the market, that the market responds to it. Then the buyer's journey. We all focus on the sales journey because it's what we're in control of. We're not in control of the buyer's journey. We can nudge it one way or the other, but I'd focus on where the buyer is, where they want to be, where you're meeting them in their own buyer's journey. Have they already done a load of research? Do they know exactly what they want? Are you just coming in and pestering them when they want to go with another competitor? Or can you catch them at a point in the buyer's journey where you can start to nudge them with content and whatever it is, your expertise, to get them on your bandwagon and go that way. And then you can move on to the actual outreach that Victor outlined.
Yeah, if I can add one more thing, Will.
Sure.
By the way, the obvious layup here is to look at who's already bought your product, what industries or verticals have bought your product, and then really go after those verticals. Really understand who's bought already. If you understand them, then you're probably going to understand where to find more business.
I'm going to say this out of context, but it's a hilarious in context. Mark says, Clinton, and then quote, I didn't inhale. And we'll wrap up the show with that. People who get the quote will get the quote. Vid, anything else to add before we wrap things up, mate?
Let me see. No, I have nothing else to add. This Week in Sales, episode number 50. Always great hanging out with Will Barron.
Dude, we've been doing the show over a year now. How mad is that?
That's a long time, man. That's a long time.
Do you know what's hilarious?
That's a really long time.
Looking back at the original shows that we did, they were way worse being like not live and edited than the shows that we do now, live and unedited. How mad is that?
What's fascinating, Will, is how you, I, and a lot of people watching this have evolved with this video technology over the last year or two, right? And I think it's really fascinating that Zoom used to be like, what? Zoom what? Mm-hmm. Now everybody's like, yeah, just send me a Zoom invite. Like it's no big deal. It's become a habit. I think it's fascinating what's happening in the world of video.
Do you know, I've not thought of it like that. When we started doing the show originally, we recorded, because our team does the production for all this, right? So this is our issues and limitations as opposed to Victor's issues and limitations. But we recorded over Skype, and then it was all condensed and compressed and sent over to an editor, Adam, our wonderful editor, and the team over at his company. Then it would get sent back, and it would go up. We recorded on Thursday, and sometimes it would go online, and I'd send it to you to show on your channel that on Monday, Tuesday.
Right.
And that's how, and now we record this over Zoom. Now you can see all the wonderful animations that, again, Adam's team put together for us. I'll link Adam's company in the show notes as well. If you enjoyed this content, the animations, that side of things, the production, you can go and speak to Adam and his team and his crew, and he might be able to help you as well. But yeah, all that kind of development, all of this wasn't available. This didn't exist to us, kind of, I guess, middle of the road content creators of, I say middle of the road, you got 200,000 subscribers. I'll take it back. Me, as in like a medium small content creator, you getting into medium to large size audience content creation. This wasn't available to us like 5 years ago. It certainly wasn't available when you first got on YouTube. So this is a prime time, a real opportunity for salespeople to create content, to create engaging experiences for the buyers, and that's probably where a lot of this is heading, right?
I think so. Hey, did I ever tell you, Will, that my first video that I ever recorded for YouTube was me holding my laptop like this and recording myself writing on the board? That was it.
Is it on YouTube still?
Video. That's my first video on YouTube, I think. It was like me holding this thing, and then I bought one of those little what were they called? They look like a little phone, but little video recorders like this small. and I would have to hold them once in a while just to record myself doing something on the board or just find a little stand. I had no microphone. It was just a mess. And to fast forward and see how we're doing it today, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Dude, I found some pictures of when I was younger. I used to play drums in different like punk rock bands and pop punk bands, and I found some pictures of the one of the bands I was in, and it was only like local gigs kind of thing. There's a place called the Citadel. It might have closed now in St. Helens. I think maybe like 500-600 people, and we sold it out a few times. So it was we were rubbish, but it was a really good. All our mates were there, friends and family and stuff, and there'd be other bands supporting us, or we'd support other bands. One of the bands.
Do you have pictures and videos? Do you have any pictures or videos? That's what I want to know right now.
Yes,
do you have any pictures or videos of that?
Pictures, but no videos. There's my mum dubbed over one of the.
We want pictures. We want pictures. Next episode, we got to have pictures.
Okay. So this is where I'm going with this. The picture that I found the other day on an old hard drive as I was clearing out some stuff, the camera that took the picture, you'd put floppy drives in the back of the camera. That was the storage medium.
Wow.
How insane is that?
That is insane. I got a bunch of like a drawer full of cards, those SD cards, because I don't really use the SD cards anymore. And I got one that's like 100 megabytes. I'm like, can't fit anything on there now. It's just amazing. Technology is beautiful, man.
An iPhone photo taken in an uncompressed format would be way bigger than 100 megabytes right now.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? It's amazing. Like I said, I think, and then people who are watching this, I mean, if you think about just the microphones we use, the switchers we use, the integrated platforms you use on that side to make all this stuff work live. I mean, you're right. It is fascinating and interesting. And in another 2 or 3 years, I mean, I don't know where this is going to be, but it's really interesting. I really love the world of video and where it's going.
Yeah. The only place this can go now, because for not too much money, you can build, and it's what we've got here, essentially a commercial, what would you call it? Like video production company. All the gear we use now are used in trucks throughout the world, recording at the Olympics or wherever it is, recording news broadcasts. The only thing that I think there's going to be a massive change 10 years from now, and it's going to be gradual, but it's going to change everything. It's going to be this metaverse idea. It's going to be this VR idea. As soon as Apple released the VR headset, which was slated to come out this year, but is now rumored to be pushed back into 2023, as soon as they release a device, as Apple are always late to the market, but then end up dominating the market, being a last mover, taking that last mover advantage. As soon as that comes out, all this is done for, Victor. Me and you we're going to be in a virtual set. I'm going to have to like pretend that you're there and looking at you as we're chatting. It's going to be super awkward, but the audience will be like, we'll be able to register people in different seats, and they'll be, if they get there on time, they'll have like the front row. Otherwise, they'll be right at the back of the auditorium watching us.
Oh, it's going to be wild. I've actually thought of taking a room and making it all green, like even the floor, right? Just painting the floor green and just having the full, VR experience, man. I think that's going to be the future. Rooms that are all green. You just walk in, and I can pop in over there, and we're both standing next to each other, as you just said, doing that. It's going to be fascinating.
We will talk about that offer in a second, because I've got plans for that in the new space that eventually, when I can frigging buy somewhere, get my hands on some commercial property, that's what's going to happen. So we'll talk about that in a second, Victor. With that was Victor Antonio, Sales Royalty. My name is Will Barron, founder of salesman.org, and that was This Week in Sales.